Morning, everyone. Today we're going to talk about Midnight Suns post Lunchmeat. Um, so I did make it to the finals of Lunchmeat versus Curtis, and if you want to go watch that game, it's on Lucas's channel. And in about 5 seconds, I'm going to spoil that game and then talk about Midnight Suns. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So I did end up winning that game. Versus Curtis's Hellfire. Again, go check it out if you want to see it. Very close. I definitely spiked in the last turn to kind of end the game on the spot right there. So I'm not going to complain about that. But obviously, it definitely could have went either way. But that's how it goes versus top players, and there's always things you can do better in between, and you learn from there. So this is the list I brought. Now, it was, I'm not going to say obsolete because obviously it did well, but I was locked into it 5 weeks ago, and with the idea that okay, if I lost, I could update it and make the changes as I was playing it on the side as well, in friendly games, and it just never lost, and I never got to change it. So we're gonna talk about some of the things I'd like to change, or just thoughts about what I think. Yeah, exactly what I want to change, and thoughts about Suns in general. All right, so I think the easy one and the one that Colin and I have been working on this list together, and so definitely a lot of credit to him for doing a lot of testing and talking to me and helping out. Um, and so one thing I think we've determined is that we don't want iHawk anymore. So okay, so let's just go through and see how things perform. So we have Blade. He's the leader. There is no. I'm not going leaderless. I've told you this. He's a fine four threat. You go watch him kill some stuff. Well, he only attacked 3 times in that game, but he did what he needed to do. I mean, the bump is too good, and the list is too based around bump to not play him, in my opinion. Hulk, never played him. I haven't played him. I've played probably 14 to 15 games, and I've never used them. So I went into Midnight Suns saying I want to test without iHawk just to see how they are. Thinking iHawk was not a core piece, as in like he's going to be every game, but accepting that he's going to come out at some point, and I'll have to end up using him. And it just ended up that I never used him. I never really felt the need to. Sure, there may be some cases where he's not bad, but as of right now, he's going to be cut from the list most likely. Um, it just he's very dice reliant. I think he's one of those models when you're against him and he rolls well, you're like, oh my god, this is awful. And then when you're playing him, which I haven't, but I played against him where he rolls, 7 dice attacks and he doesn't get his wild and he doesn't get any power or he's displaced, and you're just like, man, this sucks. Um, so he's out of my list for now. Voodoo was great. In fact, I think I like Voodoo even more than I did before. Now, I already liked Voodoo, and I think I went in a phase with Convocation where I used to run only Voodoo as one of my threats. Well, there was a time in Convocation where I only ran 3 Convocation models, and then I had Cabal on the side. And so Voodoo had to be in all my lists that were Convocation. And I think since then, I went to Magic, and I did more 3-threat stuff, and when I lost Rhino for squad goals, Voodoo wasn't making the team as much, and now he pairs very well with Rhino. So he's coming back, and he's just a good model. Like in Convocation and in Suns, he's affiliated. He's 4. I think he has slightly different roles in both. Obviously, having a defensive bump versus an offensive bump is a big deal. But like he's still very good. His steal is still online all the time. All the time being air quotes, being that it is a constant action. He can do it to multiple people, so he's one of the biggest threats late turn. Just because you can, if you get a bunch of power, which he can make power pretty well with his attacks, if you get a bunch of power, he can possess 2 people and really turn the tide of the game. He's really good with Bump. He's good with Siege. He's good with Bats. He's probably one of the best users of all those cards. And so, like, when it comes to, like, bumping, and this is, I kind of talked about in the bump video, but, when you look for characters, one thing bump gives you a lot of times, and I mentioned this in the video, is a lot of extra attacks. And Voodoo's a great example of this because, you know, when it comes to like a midline secure, like a D shape, you can walk, bump onto the point, and basically you get a free attack without having to risk like, oh, if my attack doesn't work, I'm basically giving them a point, stuff like that. So, you know, a lot of these characters have that ability, and it's really nice. So he's staying in the list. He's great. I mean, he would never drop. In fact, if anything, I want to use him more in my rosters. So that's kind of the commentary there. Iron Fist again. I've gotten a couple like cool fists. I've gotten a couple where he just gets bodied and or the fist gets sacked. I think there's two of my games that were streamed and he didn't get a fist in either, or he got one but he got sacked to a model who already activated it. But I think that the way I play and he affects the game in ways that other things do, where it's almost like sometimes if it works, it seems really good. Like you get priority and you do something where you activate somebody's Ultron or Hulk. But there's games where you're forcing activations the enemy doesn't want to do, and I think that semi requires you to be. I don't like the word. I mean, aggressive is I think the wrong word. I mean, I am aggressive, but I think proactive is a better word. If you're very proactive with your pieces, you can put the enemy in a situation where, oh, if I don't daze Iron Fist right here, he's about to fist somebody. But I really want to go with somebody over here because Gwenom or Voodoo is about to fuck me up, right? So that's probably a deeper conversation past just Midnight Suns, where you're really, I mean, there's a lot of things with like activation order, thinking about how the next turn's activation order is going to be impacted, especially when people are like on one health. Other things there. But I think Danny's great for that. He comes with a great card. He's good with bump. He has a lot of movement shenanigans. He's a very fun model to use, and I think if you can use the Midnight Suns' abilities to keep the game close and like even, he has the ability to really set up a huge swing turn because, talking about swing turns and scoring is a whole other thing too, but, if you're trying to close out the game and it's 12-12 and you've manipulated to the point that you can like activate Danny and hit their 4+ threat key piece and activate them, that might just be game right there. Like the game might just be over because of that. So I really like playing Danny. He's going to be in the list. Cat is one of the best threes in the game, but I don't know if I want her in my Midnight Suns roster. So I will not say that Cat is bad, but I do not reach for her. I've played her a couple times and she's been fine. I don't think I used her in Lunchmeat at all. Like she does, I don't know. I just don't. She's not good with Siege. She's not really good with bats. She doesn't generate power. I'm not a power leadership. I don't feel like we give her. She's bump is whatever. Okay, sure. I made the comment that with Voodoo you can walk bump onto a midpoint and get an attack for free essentially, and Cat can do the same thing with a long move, but you're getting a 4 dice. Like it's not the same level of attack. And almost like, do you want to waste the power on bumping turn 1? Because if your attack whiffs, you're on 1 power turn 2, and it sucks, right? You might as well save your power and get a stagger off. But if you're just being a stagger bot, I don't see the point. I wouldn't fault anybody for having in their roster, but I'm not reaching for her a lot, and I think Danny's a cooler affiliated 3. Now maybe I'll change my mind as I play more, but I barely use her, and she'll probably get dropped for Bast. I think, again, I've somewhat talked about this I thought about this with my convocation, where I don't want to say I'm down on Wong, but at the same time I am down on Wong. Like, he does there's some stuff he does that's good. So like in my game versus Curtis, he gives Gwenom a power turn 1 so that I can bump to the hammer and then walk and attack somebody with the hammer and get on a side D. So that's like a very big deal. He's good with Voodoo, where you can give Voodoo a power so Voodoo can like possess like a toad without having to generate power anyway. early on, so that's also pretty good. I guess with bump, you can technically, if you're across from a toad, you can always attack him because you can walk, bump, attack, and so it gives you an extra power. But then he'll be a little slippery, so it's a little finicky if you want to do that or not. Point being is there are some like two people that are good to give power to in the current roster, like Gwenum early and Voodoo early are both fine to give power to, but I still am kind of on the iffy ground of like it still sucks sometimes that he is kind of doesn't do anything. But maybe with the proactiveness of the rest of the roster, and that's probably why like I don't want to take Cat, for example, because if you take Cat and you're forced to take Blade, and Blade is fine, but Blade needs to roll dice and do some stuff. He's not going to sit there and do nothing. You like it starts to become like, ooh, like do I actually have enough to do damage here? And so maybe when you're taking rosters like Blade, Gwenum, Voodoo, Wong, Iron Fist, which is what I took last night, he can get away with being Wong and just being the derp he is on the back point or something. So he's definitely not going to be removed from my roster. But I am not like as excited to play him, and so one swap I'm going to make is I'm going to put Bullseye in, who I always thought was going to be good in the Midnight Suns, but because this list, like, I'm kind of going back. I'm still used to like trying not to play affiliated models, right? You've heard me play Convocation, and I'm like actively trying not to put in Convocation models and just splash the best stuff. And I think with this roster, Blade and Voodoo being very obviously having to take it, then you have like Iron Fist or something. Like there are affiliated models I don't mind taking. I don't mind taking Voodoo, Iron Fist, Blade, and yeah, you can put Wong in there too. And I had 4 affiliated yesterday, but if like Wong was Bullseye in that roster, he wouldn't have turned on some of the stuff with Hammer. So I'm not going to totally discount Wong Daddy there. But you know, it does leave me room to put in another model if I wanted. If I have 2/2s, I also think 2/2s will be good for some roster building. Like at 16, you can go like Blade, Voodoo, Gwenum, Wong, Bullseye, which I actually think is pretty strong at 16 because you have a very good, you know, you have a Steel, you have a very mobile Gwenum, you have your leader. If people go with bumps, anyway, point being is Wong's in the list. I'm just gonna say Gwenum is in the. I mean, she's definitely the best thing like in Suns that's not Suns. She's in every. I've never played without her, and I don't think I'd make a roster without her if I can avoid it. Maybe there's matchups where I wouldn't, but she's so good in Midnight Suns. You just get like. So we talk about what can bump give you. Whether it's an extra move action in theory, right? If you only need to bump a little bit, it could be an extra attack. It's a lot of times it's a move action that becomes an attack, right? When it comes to like going to the midline and stuff like that. With Gwenum, bump is essentially pay 1 power to place 1 and then get a free 5 dice attack with full rerolls. If you're attacking the same thing, right? So if you think of play pattern stuff, right? The normal Gwenum play pattern, air quote, would be to walk, attack, get a free move, right? Or to attack with rerolls. So you're getting 2 attacks, 1 with full rerolls, and you could attack multiple people and not get the rerolls. But let's just think of it that way, right? So it's either 2 attacks, 1 with full rerolls, or walk, attack, walk. So 2 walks and so her play pattern is not only do you get the extra range 1, which is still pretty good because if somebody hits you from range 4, you can hit them back at range 3 with a bump and not have to move. But you get like, so you're either getting 2 moves above 1 play pattern, or you're getting an extra 5 dice with reroll all attack against the other play pattern, all for just bumping. And she's already pretty good without like she gets turned up to 11. She's really like she's the star of the show, in my opinion. So she's never she's not. If I'm not playing Midnight Suns, if I don't have Gwenum in my list, boom. Red Skull, I never used him. I've used him 1 game. I used him in my first game ever with Midnight Suns. Wasn't for this. He's probably going to be dropped. Like, he's a cool 5. I'm not going to tell you not to take him. He has some cool things where you can walk, bump to the midline, cut yourself, empowered shot somebody, and then still have a power left to pick up the whatever's on the ground. Um, I there are probably plays to be. I think the hard part. So the hard part about splashes is going to be. I don't know if there's a better model than Gwenum to splash, and so when you put in a splash that's 4 threat and you have to take 9 threat minimum, the lowest threat that Skull could come in is 18, and then you're talking you have Wong in the roster, and then you're like, well, and then you're like, it's like Wong, Iron Fist, Blade, Red Skull, Gwenum, and you're like, do I really want the Grunts and Wong in the list? I think there's a little overlap there that kind of sucks, where it's like, okay, the Grunts can move to the middle, obviously, but you kind of get on this like, okay, do I want them both together? I could see playing it maybe on like keeping him in the roster if you have like intrusions, because the Grunts are good on intrusions just because they come back. You can get to the middle. You don't have to play Wong on intrusions. Intrusions is 19 threat, and then you can play things like Blade. I mean, the problem is I think you want Voodoo in a lot of rosters, and then you're either looking at Wong or Iron Fist. But if you take Wong, Voodoo, like it gets to the same problem of like, are the Grunts going to be in the same place that Wong wants to be? And maybe it happens with Bullseye when you take them together because they both kind of want to be back there. But I think Bullseye can be a little more proactive, be on the other side of the map. And you're talking like lower threat values or being like 6 wide. So I think he's going to go. Hella, I know Collar might listen to this, and I know he likes Hella. I'm still on the fence about Hella, like, very much so. Like, she might just become Bill. I hate to say it, but, like, the problem is she's a safe grab, but a lot of times, like, Bill, like, I don't know. I feel like I'd rather just, like, if it's a D-shaped hammers, I'd rather just walk Bill to the side and be there. Right? And be tanky enough to survive and have, like, cool, like, you can do things with aggressive and then in your turn bump and stuff like that. Like, Bill's just a better, tankier model. Or Rhino. Like, and we're talking, like, changes could happen in the next couple days. But even so, like, you're not, I don't know, who cares if Eyes on the Prize goes away? I don't have it. Right? Unless they nerf Bill himself, like, he's still going to be good there. And the fact that you don't need Eyes on the Prize with Bill to have a safe grab in Suns is huge, because then he becomes useful and he doesn't take a card. Sure, you can get that turn 2 shit where, like, okay, if you do it on a book and you run to the back, like, you're not in as good a position as you could have been. But he still has, like, kind of cool things with, like, Senators where you can double walk, take theirs, bump to a side D. He's just a good model, period. Like, he's fine on pay to flips. He's not as fast as Hella, but Hella just fucking dies. And I gotta get better with her. I'll test her some more. I don't like playing her that much. And the thing is, like, I think she does compete with, like, Voodoo sometimes, where it's like, I can only take Hella or Voodoo, and I'd rather just take Voodoo, I think. Her big thing for me is the safe grab. That's the reason I take her the most. If it wasn't for the safe grab, I'd probably never take her. But obviously that's a big reason you have her in the roster, so I can't really hate on that too much. But we'll see. She's kind of there for now. I think she's an easy change for, like, a build type. Probably Rhino's good here, too. Even if Robbery gets nerfed to be, like, more power, I think just the bumping and movement of, like, a Gwenum Rhino combo could be really strong. Now, you kind of get into, it's fine. I mean, if you're on 16 points, you can't take that roster anyway, so I'll see. And then Craven. So I've said why his name's Cravenoff. It's not even spelled the same. Okay, whatever. Craven. Here's my real assessment. I think he has a lot of good synergies with Bump. I've explained them before in the Discord. I think I've talked about them here. And what I find is you're never going to take him over Gwenum. And this is gonna be a very big trend when I talk about Medicine Sons, but it's important to talk about. You're never gonna take him over Gwenum, right? You'll make sacrifices elsewhere in points to keep Gwenum over him. And so he becomes this like secondary mini Gwenum, and I guess I can look at the roster and go, okay, he synergizes with Bump really well, and he has some really cool things when he has pop off turns, and he puts all the, he's good with siege and stuff like that, and so that's why he probably will get a little bit more testing. But I can also see the world where you say, listen, my Iron Fist and Bash, Black Panther, Bass, what's his name? Chosen of Bass. I'll just go BP3. Black Panther 3. You're like, I don't really mind not having him because of Siege and stuff. I'd rather just take Black Panther or Danny. And so, unless you're running like 3/3s, which I don't think I've done ever, because that's what, 3/3s? I mean, you could do it with Gwenum. I mean, there's a list probably like 18 where it's like, no, but I don't know. Like, there might be lists that have him. I just don't know. Do I need 3/3s for anything? I guess if I want to run 6 wide, I need like a Craven type model. I'll put it this way. I think there's probably going to be an unaffiliated 3 in this roster, potentially. And it may not be Craven. It may be somebody that's more specialized instead of a generalist. But I haven't decided yet, so that's more testing required. I think some of the other changes I'm going to make might make Craven come in more because I'll have another 2. I think from a list building thing I learned is I want another 2 because it was very obnoxious to build lists, and I'm like, I just, if you want Voodoo, Blade, and Gwenum at 16, you can't, right? Well, you can't because I don't have another affiliated 4, and I don't have 2 2s. All right, so what did we decide? Hulk, Skull, Cat are gone for sure. Bash and Chosen of Bass and Bullseye are coming in. And I think what we're going to test now is instead of Master Red Skull, it's going to be Angela. So, again, she has the same kind of issue with... Well, not the same issue. She's different than Skull for sure. One thing that's kind of nice about Angela, or at least to test... I mean, this is all theory, right? Like we can go to... if you look at Angela, I used to like Angela a lot. Like she's just a cool model to use. So the thing that I like about her is, obviously she's a safe grab, and maybe that becomes more popular. She's also can steal enemy scrolls, and scrolls is very popular, and so she can safely steal someone's scroll, which no one else can do if Eyes on the Prize goes around. Well, maybe somebody can, I don't know, but like it's much harder with Eyes on the Prize gone. So you might be able to get away with some like cheeky shit if you like, because Suns is also a roster that can punish people that like come across, like with the bump and stuff. You get so many more free attacks and movement tech, especially Gwenum and like Voodoo, that if you're playing like 20 scrolls and you play like, I don't know, you could play Angela, Gwenum, Blade, Voodoo, Fist or something. I mean, it's only 5 wide, so maybe you're... But, I mean, she's so good. But she's also very good at killing weenies, too. So if somebody goes, like, 6, 7 wide versus you, she also has plays to, like, get it going. And another reason was and you could even go, instead of Danny, you could go Bash. Chosen. BP3. I need to call him BP3. She also brings a size 4 throw, which is really good, because one thing I noticed with Gwenum... Well, her throw is amazing. I mean, it's a character throw, size 3 medium, and she's so mobile, like, she gets it a lot. But, like, it's like one of your only throws other than Voodoo, who requires a trigger, and so it's very easy to brace it at the right time. And so, like, Angela and her, like, put a lot more pressure, and then it kind of turns on BP3, and, like, that team I just talked about, like, Blade, Black Panther 3, Voodoo, Angela, Gwenum, that is a very mobile, very damage heavy roster that has sneaky amount of throws. It has a size 4 with Angela, it's always on. It has Gwenum, who's very easy, size 3. It has a Pounce that's not always on, and then it has the trigger on Voodoo's attack, which is not always on, but the fact that you can take bats is a potential there. So see someone to try, I think, is worth a try. Also, like, with Bump, her her builder becomes range 3. So you can do a lot more stuff of like if people attack you at 3, you can bump into range, attack them, place within 2, or if they are close enough to you to attack, you can attack them, place within 2, bump again, get to some play, attack again, get to somebody on the other side. There's just some stuff like some really kind of funky stuff you can do with her and movement tech, and if people are going like more weenie based, like she can really like abuse like a Wong in the back, like her and Gwenum can abuse some stuff. People in the back line if people go too weenie heavy. So Black Panther, he's coming in for Black Cat. I don't know if I've talked about him before. He has a nice thing too, where like he has a little bit some synergy with a bump, where he's a medium move. You can walk bump to a point and get a air quote free attack on like midline stuff. I've only used him once. I did lose, but it wasn't his fault. He's good with the biggest thing for him is like getting power, right? Like you really want to, if you want to pounce and bump, you need to get power going. So he might like be power starved, and he's not the hardest thing in the world to kill. Though he's kind of funny with Angela for no reroll tech. And if you had a cat, you could be really obnoxious and take like Angela, cat, her, and be like, all right, you can't reroll shit versus me, X Force. I mean, he'll still die to a lot of those characters, but I mean, he has good clapback stuff. Like his finisher, like I did get to do it once and it just totally whiffed. But like the potential on the finisher, especially with like bats or something, like it could be a 7 dice attack into a 5 dice reroll off into potentially doing it again, like, and it's not that crazy, like, because like if you just have you need a lot of power to do that. It depends on how good the second attack goes. But it could happen, is what I'm saying. Like, in the pounce, if you have, again, like, if you take people that throw things outside of, to put the brace pressure on early, you can really start to, like do some bumped up damage with, like, pounces and stuff like that. So he's definitely coming in. I think Hulk is another one that's been floated around again. He kind of falls into that. Like, he can walk, bump, throw every turn. That's always online. Always online if you want to do it. Walk, bump, throw. And that's a really lot of movement and a lot of displacement. And so because he's better than iHulk at doing that kind of displacement stuff, it sort of opens up some interesting possibilities. Again, if you're taking him with Gwenum, it's going to be really tough to play, like, I don't know. It's going to be tough to play. I mean, there could be a world too, I was talking to Curtis, where, if you don't take Angela and you take Hulk, Craven could be Sam and you can dual affiliate with Sam. I don't know when you would, because you have, technically you're never going to take Blade in Sam, but you could have like Voodoo, Iron Fist, Sam, Hulk as your core. I mean, that's already 16 points. But then you could have, and I mean, what's his name? Bash is Black Panther 3 is Avengers 2. So you're definitely not like you have a lot of Avengers already, and then it's not that far off of like some solid Sam lists. But right now it's probably not going to happen. Cards, I like bats. I know Collar's not as high on it. I use it a lot. I like it. You're basically always taking like Siege, Sack, Brace, Heroes if you have Iron Fist, and so you're only like fighting for like one card, which a lot of times for me is bats. I mean, One Blow is going to be gone because you drop iHawk. Cosmic Revelation is going to be gone because of Emerald, because her Skull's gone. Angela doesn't come with a card. Bullseye doesn't come with a card. Everyone I'm adding doesn't come with a card. I mean, maybe Fallback might get restricted. Mission Objective and Mark for Death might be gone, for all I know, or restricted, and then you have to choose, and they're leaving, obviously. So I think from a card perspective, you're not really worrying about it too much. I think you have more than enough room to duel with Sam or put in if any unique cards come out. Because I think from a game-to-game perspective, you're pretty locked. Like, you're taking Siege, Sack, Brace in, like, and maybe Heroes if you have Iron Fist in like 90%, 95% of your games. So your choices aren't really that exciting, but they're also good. Like they're good anyway, so you can really put in some tech stuff if you want. But I also wouldn't fret about like what you put in per se. You can also dual Hellfire with the or not Hellfire. Fuck Hellfire. Convocation, I guess. But anyway, Crisis. I'm probably gonna drop Senators. Um, I think there is some play. Two things. I do think Midnight Suns can play Senators well with some of the bump stuff they can do early on. But I'm also willing to say it's probably too fast. So there's this adage. I guess Morgan Reed said it. Um, but there's this adage apparently like the slower the game, in some sense, the more time you have to outplay your opponent. And we're not talking like gamma researcher slow attrition shit. We're talking like 3 to 4 extracts, stuff like that. Stuff that the game ends like turn 4 to 5, not turn 3. And so that taking Senators kind of goes against that idea. Give you time to get things rolling. And so I don't think that this team is necessarily some like super fast, hot starting, we're going to steal 3 Senators and get on all the points type roster. So while I'm not going to complain about playing Senators, maybe I shouldn't actively like put it in my roster. I think Scrolls and Virus are fine. I don't know what I'd put in for. I don't know what is our last one. I think he has Hammers. I think Collar has Hammers, which I'm not opposed to. I'm not opposed to Hammers. I'll say it's A-okay. Hammers is A-okay. Let's see the others. I don't really want Madmen anymore. Demons is fine, even without Ihawk. Maybe we get scared off of that. And it makes Bill better, to be fair. Because you have Voodoo, Bill, Blade, like Danny, Gwenum or something. Is that enough points? That's 19 there. Probably not bad. Madmen, Sparks is one. I mean, we don't know if Christ are going to change at some point. If they do now or they do end of the year, it could always shake things up. If with Bullseyes in this list, I'm way more willing to rotate to Cosmic Invasion. I think we're actually very good on Extremist. Like, I've done really well on Extremist. I played Curtis on Extremist, which is like Hellfire's best one, which was obviously very annoying still because he healed Rhino from like 5 to like 0 in like 1 turn. That being said, like it's maybe one of those like I like the D shape because like Gwenum is so good on it, and we have a lot of good people on Ds. Weirdly enough, but maybe we shouldn't give them the Riots one. Let's take the other one instead. I don't know what. I think maybe Intrusions. I think Collar takes Intrusions, which I think I'm fine with too. I think like naturally it feels like Sun should be decent on Intrusions. We have a lot of midline pressure that I talked about. I mean, okay, Gwenum gets good on Intrusions without Midnight Sun's bump. I might say combo. Yeah, I'll probably try Intrusions. It'll probably be Intrusions, Demons. I think it's that and Cosmic Invasion, and then Virus, Scrolls, and Hammers. It might not be Hammers. I might change it. But yep, that's kind of the debrief. I will play Midnight Suns in the next Lunchmeat, which will be after all the changes. So after those changes drop, if they do at all, I don't think it'll affect my Suns roster too much unless it's a really big shakeup. It'll definitely affect my convocation, so I'll have a video on that. I am playing in my top 8 game is Friday, and it will be streamed on Mike Whalen's channel, Asteroid MCP, on YouTube, and we'll see if I can get to the top 4. Thanks for listening.